Christmas Eve 2015, Albuquerque, New Mexico. A local woman viciously attacked while jogging on one of the city's trails.
She was out for a run. She encountered somebody who tackled her to the ground and dragged her into the bushes and sexually assaulted her.
Fortunately for her, she had the instinct to get out of there as quickly as possible.
The survivor happens to be a talented artist, and she provides police with a sketch of her assailant.
I've never had a victim do their own sketch of their offender. It was incredibly accurate.
One by one, the leads run dry. The survivor fears she may one day cross paths again with the rapist. Investigators hear of a new and remarkable forensic technique that could help them crack this case wide open once and for all.
It makes me want to say to everybody out there hiding in the shadows, welcome to the new light of day. Genetic genealogy is here and it is not going away.
This is the story of one survivor's very long crusade to help police track down her assailant. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Bloodline Detectives. Albuquerque, New Mexico, a vibrant city renowned for its multicultural charm and breathtaking natural landscapes.
Albuquerque is the largest city in the state of New Mexico. The metro area is probably 650, 700,000 people. It's got a really diverse population, sort of a unique and rich cultural history.
We have a large mix of Native Americans that have been here for hundreds, if not thousands of years. A large Spanish population that also lived here for hundreds of years. We are a mid-sized American city, and we are not immune to what lots of cities face that have diversity of culture and people that move in and out with frequency.
If you ask the citizens of Albuquerque what is the one thing that is holding the community back, it's the inability to get a handle on some of those larger challenges. It's a community that has, unfortunately, higher levels of violent crime, in particular gun crime.
Despite Albuquerque's difficulties with gun violence, it's still an attractive place to live. It's blessed with incredible natural beauty, including the Rio Grande River, which runs through the city. Christmas Eve 2015, a local woman decides to go jogging along one of the Rio Grande's scenic trails.
Our victim was a single mother. She's an educator here in Albuquerque, in town. She's athletic. Running was something that she would do quite often. The area that she went running in was about as residential suburbia as you can get. Schools were nearby. There's a public library close to where the incident took place. And it was a trail that she was very familiar with because it's near her home. She could go out her front door and get onto this trail fairly quickly and had run on it dozens of times prior to this incident. It should be safe, but unfortunately there's certain dangerous realities for a woman or a man to run alone in certain areas. And in this case, there was an absolute predator on the trail that day that there's no way she could have had any idea what she was gonna run into. She heard somebody running behind her on the same trail very fast, and it kind of startled her. And it was a man who had these red pants on that kind of made a lot of noise, like swooshing back and forth. She lost sight of the man as he was running much faster than she was at the time, and she got to a particular fork in the trail. One part of the trail, if she stays on it, it keeps her somewhat elevated where she can see neighborhoods, the neighborhoods can see her, or she can cut off kind of into this wooded area that will lead her right next to the river. So a little bit more scenic, a little bit more peaceful and serene. and she's taken both trails in the past. In this case, she decided to take the more serene trail into the woods. She saw the man who had just passed her on the trail with the red pants, kind of standing up next to a tree right off of the trail.
And it caused her some sort of hesitation. She had an instinct that something wasn't right, and sadly that instinct was proven correct, that once she got closer to his location, he actually tackled her to the ground and dragged her into the bushes and sexually assaulted her.
He ended up pinning her down with both of his hands on both of her shoulders. He pulled her pants down all the way down to her ankles, but then also pulled up her shirt, exposing her breasts. During this ordeal, she was pleading, don't do this. I don't want you to do this. This isn't what I want.
He threatened to kill her if she made too much noise to alert anyone about it. She initially was screaming, but when he made those threats, she looked around and realized he can probably kill me and no one's ever gonna even hear this or know about it.
She said that it all of a sudden kind of stopped, but she could feel that he pulled up his shirt and that he reached into his back pocket. As he reached into his back pocket, it appeared he pulled out a cell phone. At that moment, she said that she could hear what she thought was 1 to 2 clicks on his cell phone as if he was taking a picture.
She thought back to an actual self-defense course that she had taken for women that talked about if you're under attack and you're overpowered, a strategy to try to calm the attacker down so that you can at least escape safely at some point of the encounter.
After the assault took place, she was able to get away by convincing him to run in one direction while she was able to turn around and basically run in the opposite direction.
It's just a real testament to her composure and her courage to have the presence of mind to actually talk to the attacker afterwards. She was very right to be concerned that he might actually kill her or harm her further. And so she, according to her, told him that if he went in one direction, she would return home in the other direction, and sort of convinced him to leave her alone.
She runs back the exact way she came, as quick as she can towards her house. She continued to run home, and at that point decided that she did not want to call police, which is not uncommon with sexual assault survivors in many cases. But she did call a rape crisis hotline on the telephone to tell them what happened and seek their advice.
The Rape Crisis Center asked the survivor if she can come in for a sex assault exam.
She came and saw us for a scenic exam, and we were able to collect evidence, and she didn't choose to report to the law enforcement at that time, but you can always go back and report at a later date as well.
It is so difficult for so many women to report a sex assault. Law enforcement's trying to help them with new methods for reporting their attack while still preserving their dignity.
Albuquerque Police Department is also, their sex crimes division is in our building, so it makes it very convenient. I think it's a lot more approachable. And so it removes some of the barriers that they might face to reporting. So we have about 10% more than the national average of victims who report to law enforcement, which is phenomenal. And so we absolutely always encourage people to report to law enforcement, but knowing that everybody's experience is different, justice looks different for every victim.
Usually after a victim has consulted with a psychologist, a psychiatrist, talked to their family, and really come to that decision on their own. Some victims are adamant about reporting to law enforcement immediately. Others want to have some time to think about how they want to move forward. And so the Rape Crisis Center is in a position to just support the victim and allow them to go through the process at their own pace.
Police now have DNA evidence from that sex assault exam. But will it be enough to track down a vicious predator still on the loose? We find out next on Bloodline Detectives. Christmas Eve 2015, a local woman goes for a run along the Rio Grande in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She passes a fellow jogger and instinctively she feels nervous in his presence, and she's right. The same man appears again. He tackles her, drags her off the trail, and viciously rapes her. Afterward, the victim goes to a rape crisis center. She undergoes a sex assault exam, but she's still afraid to report the rape to law enforcement.
Her day-to-day life following this experience must have been very difficult in a lot of different ways, because this is something that a lot of people really struggle to move past. A lot of victims relive and re-experience what happened to them. A lot of them could be in fear, not knowing that their attacker is going to come and find them and do this or do something even worse to them in the future.
March 7, 2016, 3 months after the rape, the survivor bravely decides to share her story with police.
The victim does decide to make a police report. So it's been, just about 3 months since the attack occurred. She makes the police report and it gets assigned to a detective at the sheriff's department right away to look into.
She, being an artist herself, was able to create a sketch of the individual who had attacked her and was really able to put pen to paper on how this person looked like from her perspective. She was able to describe him as being a younger gentleman, about 5'7". He was clean shaven, didn't have a beard or a mustache. He had brown hair that seemed to be sticking out of the hat that he was wearing. He also had brown eyes, and she described him as being athletic. He seemed muscular, of an athletic body type.
That sketch became such a key piece of evidence, and I'll tell you, in my 20 years of doing this, it's the only one I've ever had. I've never had a victim do their own sketch of their offender.
A sketch which is not only provided by the survivor, but actually drawn by her, is now a vital piece of evidence for detectives. They devise a plan to catch her callous rapist.
They're going to want to canvass the area to look for additional either victims or witnesses. They're going to want to examine prior police reports, unsolved reports about other sexual assaults. Obviously upload the data, the specimen, into CODIS to see if there's a DNA match through the national database to see if there are any leads that could be generated that way.
CODIS is a database that the FBI developed decades ago, where law enforcement at the state and federal levels put profiles of offenders into. Violent crimes like murders, armed robberies, domestic violence, sexual assaults. Crimes of this nature get your DNA put into CODIS once you're convicted of the crime by a court. And if your DNA shows up on a crime scene somewhere else, it can be compared against CODIS, which can easily identify a possible offender. The thing with CODIS is it's not everyone who's arrested. That's not how it works. You have to be convicted. It has to be certain felony crimes that you're convicted of. And it only is going to look at people who have been convicted. So if you've never been arrested or convicted of a serious felony crime, you're not in CODIS. So we might have your DNA, but you weren't in CODIS, so we actually don't know who you are.
During the initial part of the investigation, the police worked very hard at looking at those that are closest to the victim. So they were out there speaking with all of her past boyfriends, anyone she had been in a relationship with, speaking with any of her male family members and friends, all of which ultimately were eliminated.
Another 3 months go by. The investigation seems to be slowing down. Then, what every rape victim fears seems to happen. The survivor believes she sees her rapist again.
During the summer of 2016, this victim went into a local sandwich shop in town, and as soon as she walked in, she thought she encountered the guy that had attacked her several months earlier. So as soon as she saw this individual, she ran out and contacted law enforcement, saying she might have ran into him.
I was in my office. She gave me a phone call. She said, I think I found the offender. I said, okay. So she gave me the information of what was going on. The person that she saw fit the description. Was about 5'8", 5'9", went to our local university here, and was a prominent athlete here, which matches the colors of what he would have been wearing. We ended up doing a warrant for him at his dorm. So we ended up doing a body warrant on him. We ended up doing a warrant of his dorm as well, where we ended up taking his cell phone. Once we confiscated his cell phone, we ended up doing a warrant on his cell phone to extract the information on there, because we're looking for pictures as well. Since in the initial interviews, she said that there was pictures taken of her. We extracted his cell phone. We didn't find any pictures of her. We ended up doing a swab for him for DNA. We got all that information, sent it back up to Santa Fe for them to do a test. We got his DNA back. Once we got his DNA back, it was also negative as well for the DNA that was sent on the rape kit.
It's a crushing moment for a survivor who thinks she's identified her attacker.
She made a comment that said, well, at least we tried, and I know that I can move on now knowing that we tried the best we could to find this person. And at that moment, it kind of hit me to say, you know what, I'm not satisfied with what we're doing. We have to do more because we have to find this person. It almost seemed to me like she was happy with what we did, that we tried our best, almost as if she was ready to move on. But to me, it just, I wasn't satisfied. I went to the DA's office, and that's when I talked to them and I said, what can we do? There's something we need to do to help her. What can we do? And at that moment, there was nothing. But now I know that it planted a seed, put something in their mind to know that if something came up later on, that maybe we would have a chance to catch this individual.
A rape survivor seems to be giving up hope her attacker will ever be caught. Her hopelessness inspires police to work even harder. They look to an emerging forensic science to help them catch a rapist. That's next on Bloodline Detectives. Albuquerque, New Mexico, police determined to catch a vicious rapist who sex assaults a female jogger Christmas Eve 2015. And the victim happens to be an expert sketch artist. She herself provides detectives with a sketch of the assailant. Now, investigators are hoping a cutting-edge forensic technique can actually identify her rapist.
What we established was something called the Crime Strategies Unit that really tried to not replicate the same capacity that the local police agencies had, but to do special analytical and data-driven work that oftentimes local police agencies just didn't have the time or expertise to sort of invest in. But I also wanted to make sure that we were doing some novel work on trying to solve some of the unsolved cases, some of the cases that had gone cold over the years, both homicides and sexual assaults. And, you know, when I first started reading about how the case in California involving the Golden State Killer and others was put together, and the work that was done on forensic genealogy, it seemed like an ideal fit for this new team and this new unit. And so I reached out to the head of that unit, Kyle Hartsock, who's just a tremendous natural-born police officer.
First and foremost, to do a forensic genealogy case, you need a sufficient amount of DNA. You can't just run it off of any amount of DNA easily. This case had it. So it met that minimum qualifying amount of DNA that was left behind. 2, our victim was still alive. This wasn't a homicide case. This victim was alive, to give her the best chance to tell her who her offender was and let her feel that little bit of safety that police were able to solve that crime, and possibly even get justice in court, meant a whole lot to the entire team, from the original detective to me to the prosecutor's office. And the area it happened in was somewhat less populated. One of the beliefs I had early on was our offender probably lived nearby. This was not a highly popular running trail where hundreds of people a day go running on it. This has maybe 10 people a day at most, with the perfect weather, run on it. So that our offender was probably very, very local to the area and very familiar with the area.
That's when we really started to get things going. And we immediately started trying to identify the right genealogical experts, the right laboratory to work with to get this work done. We did a lot of research, and CSU did a lot of research on how the cases in California and the Golden State Killer was put together, and sort of replicating those sorts of things.
So what exactly is this forensic technique that's been cracking even the coldest of cold cases?
Investigative genetic genealogy is the process of taking unknown DNA, typically collected at crime scenes, uploading the DNA to DNA databases, such as GEDmatch, hoping to find a family member who's related to the person that they're ultimately searching for, the suspect in a crime.
It could be this person, but it could be their brother, right? It could be a close first cousin of theirs or a half sibling. We still have to put our detective shoes on and do everything that we're used to doing, which is good interviews, right? Surveillance, collecting physical evidence, tying this whole case together. We need a beginning, a middle, and an ending of a story, because one day we're gonna have to explain this to a jury. The family tree is gonna point us in a direction, and then we do what we normally do.
Investigators search on GEDmatch. It's a commercial website built for people who want to know more about their ancestry.
We actually had 3 college interns for the summer assigned to my investigative unit. And they were young and hungry, and they just thought, anything we can do here is going to be cool and helpful. I said, we are going to learn investigative genealogy. We are going to learn how to build family trees. We are going to buy the Ancestry.com accounts, and we're gonna do this. Here's a YouTube video series on how to build a family tree. We're gonna go really hands-on with this thing and get it done. And they loved the challenge. It was a lot of fun sleuthing social media profiles and newspaper clippings from decades ago to build out these family trees, knowing that on any given day, this could be the day we get our bad guy.
For investigators, a match on a commercial website like GEDmatch is great news. There's another step, however, they must take. The people who use the website must give their consent before police can use their data.
Just over 3 or 4 months building out many family trees, conducting interviews, and one day a new profile was uploaded that was opted in for law enforcement. And it was a second cousin. And it stuck out like a sore thumb when you logged into GEDmatch, and we would log into GEDmatch daily. When I contacted the person, because I wanted to learn more about their family tree, I actually met Dr. Kimmy Price. She contacted me back and said, I'm the one who uploaded this profile. I'm a genealogy researcher on the side, and I talked to my client, told him that you reached out, and he is willing to let me help you guys in the investigation, considering I already know a lot about his family. So that is actually how we met. It wasn't us looking for a genealogist. We stumbled upon one while we were doing our search, and she was amazing.
About an hour and a half later, after I'd sent the email, I received a phone call on my cellular, and it was Commander Hartzog and some detectives, and they asked me a flurry of questions to determine my experience. And then they became very quiet and asked me if I would consider helping with the cold case. Oh, heck yeah. I was thrilled to be able to do that. The match for the family friend to the perp was about 94 centimorgans, which ballpark is third cousin. A centimorgan is a measure of how much DNA is shared between individuals. A parent-child will share between 3,500 and 4,000 centimorgans. Brothers and sisters, about 2,500 centimorgans. First cousins, around 1,000. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, about 1,600. There are ranges that vary for the relationship level. Third cousins share great-great-grandparents in common. And each individual has 8 sets of great-great-grandparents. In this case, on the father's side, there would be 4 sets of great-great-grandparents. And going back to that time and place, large families were the norm. It wasn't unusual to see family groups with 10 children apiece. And so by the time I had finished building out a family tree for the father's side of the family, I was looking at 6,500 individuals. It was a lot. What I had to do once I had finished with that was try to find a way to exclude parts of that tree to narrow down possibilities. So what I began looking at was individuals who matched a family friend, but of course had no match to the perp. And by doing that, I was able to whittle it down to a single set of great-grandparents.
She filled us in on what she had found on, his second cousin's family up to that point, which included roots that go back to parts of New Mexico and southern Colorado. So it was a true collaboration on a near daily basis, going back and forth. She did this all for free, by the way. She would work on this in her off hours, in the evenings, on weekends. She would email updates when she had them, and we would do the same back with her until Dr. Price found an obituary for a 2-year-old. And that cracked the case wide open.
Will the obituary of a 2-year-old little child finally lead to the arrest of a sex predator? That's next on Bloodline Detectives. Albuquerque, New Mexico, 2019. Police are getting closer to identifying a man who sex assaults a female jogger Christmas Eve, 2015. The combination of groundbreaking forensic science and a family tree built from a commercial website combined to help police. The most important clues so far emerged from the obituary of a little child.
In this obituary from a newspaper in Albuquerque around 1996, 1997, it mentions that a 2-year-old had lost their life, and it listed the surviving family members of the 2-year-old. The surviving family members included people directly in the family tree of our offender. That's how Dr. Price was focused in on this obituary. But it mentioned a 2-month-old younger brother who had survived, someone by the name of Angel Duran. Angel Duran, at 2 months old in 1996 or 1997, would have put him at pretty much an ideal age range from our offender and related to our offender. When we searched the name Angel Duran in all the systems that we're able to search, we could not find anyone with a birthday close to the one in the obituary with that same name. The obituary mentioned that the 2-year-old big brother of Angel had actually been murdered by his dad, which is very sad and tragic. Having worked crimes against children here in Albuquerque for decades, we know that siblings of murdered children are often put into foster care and possibly even adopted. And if they're adopted, they might change their last name. We went back into our databases, and instead of searching Angel Duran with a birthday around 1996, we just took the last name out. We said, tell me about people named Angel, born in 1996 in the Albuquerque area. And within seconds, We found somebody who matched that description, Angel Goulet, and when we looked up his address, he lived about less than a quarter mile from where the sexual assault happened in this neighborhood. Hair stood up on our necks, and we were so incredibly excited that we think we might have found our offender.
Investigators are thrilled by this brand new lead. They set out to track down their suspect.
We had to make a point-to-point comparison. We weren't going to build a case simply on forensic genealogy. We actually needed to make a one-to-one match on a freshly collected sample of DNA.
We found out that his wife was in the hospital for a relatively routine procedure. She posted about it on social media. When we saw the post, we went to the hospital really kind of in the nick of time because they were checking out. They were leaving, and they had been in one of the hospital rooms by themselves. Once they left, I told my agents, make sure that they leave the hospital like they're done, they're not coming back, this isn't just a walk around. It wasn't. They got picked up by a family member and completely left holding their belongings. The prosecutor that was helping with the case said that is abandoned property now, anything they left in the room. And we took 2 styrofoam cups, like the kind of cups the hospitals have to give you ice and water. There was 2 cups in the room. We took both carefully, placed them in evidence bags, and overnighted them to our lab to get DNA tested as quick as they could.
A genealogy website, the obituary of a little child, and now 2 styrofoam cups provide the answers the Bloodline Detectives have been waiting for.
Got our man. That's it.
Police move in to arrest Angel Goulet.
In January of 2020, the agents from our office executed a search warrant and looking for evidence of the event, of the crime itself. They actually took Mr. Goulet into custody, and after a short period of time, he confessed to the crime.
Once I showed him the test results pointing to him as the offender, he finally admitted in his own head he had no other choice here but to admit he was the one that did this crime.
When did you get the idea that you were gonna do this?
I didn't, honestly, I didn't know what was gonna happen. I went down this way and she's running this way and then I stopped, there's a tree.
Draw it however you need.
That's where I ran and then there's road, and there's a tree. I stopped at the tree because I was getting a breather. Didn't know anything was gonna happen. And she followed me down here and then went back around through the bosque. Like there's no reason why she would have went that way. And so I came and then I ran that way and then of course, yeah, that's what happened.
Did you take a picture of her?
I think so, but I don't.
Where's that picture at?
It's deleted. I once I realized what I did, like I was like, wow, this is gonna come back to me. Like I don't know what the I was thinking, and I deleted the picture, and then I was like, I went to go back to look for her, apologize, and tell her that I was sorry and everything, and I don't know what I was thinking, and that would never happen again. Like. I don't even run down there anymore because of what happened. I was like,
Would you like to write her an apology letter? I'll give you a blank sheet of paper and the pen.
of course.
Now, that's a twist. A brutal rapist now wants to write an apology letter to his victim this many years later? As we see next on Bloodline Detectives, police learn even more gruesome details. 2020, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Police finally make an arrest in the brutal sex assault of a female jogger Christmas Eve 2015. His name? Angel Goulet. Now in custody, his confession allows police to get a very clear picture of his crime.
Only 2 people knew what happened that day, right? One is the victim, but she only saw parts of it. The other one was our offender. If he truly was our offender, and I believed he was, I wanted him to show me exactly what he did. I wanted to know his thought process through it, and I wanted to record it on video in case we had to have a jury decide one day if he was telling the truth or not to the police about this attack. They could actually watch him do it in the environment. He walked me over to the approximate area where he tackled her to the ground and committed the sexual assault. And the entire time I'm asking him, very almost news media type interview with him. Tell me what you did next, right? What'd you think right here? And he seemed to be very credible and very forthright with explaining what he remembered and where it happened. And so I felt his statement was incredibly credible and truthful at that point.
Now police can finally see into the mind of Angel Gurole.
Angel Gurole did not have a very checkered criminal past. He did have a few police reports in our system. One was having an inappropriate sexual relationship with a minor, like a teenage girl when he was 18 or 19, which was actually within several months of our attack. The case wasn't followed up on by the detectives, and nothing happened. There was actually a chance for DNA to be tested in that case that he left behind. It wasn't tested. Had it been tested, it might have been in CODIS. We might have actually had a hit, or the sheriff's department would have had a hit way back in 2016 right away, but that opportunity was missed.
He had a traumatic past, which is very unfortunate. And I know a lot of times people have mixed emotions in situations where it's a younger perpetrator and they have had trauma. And the thing that I always say is, when somebody has been traumatized, that's an explanation for their behavior, but it's not an excuse.
Angel Gurole openly confesses to his crime. He enters a plea deal, which significantly reduces his sentence.
He pled out. He was looking at a possible, I think they said 80 years. He pled out to 12 years in prison. Our victim has to live with this the rest of her life. She has a life sentence because this is something she has to live with the rest of her life. Do I think a life sentence is what he deserves? Part of me says yes.
The brave survivor addresses her rapist during sentencing.
The victim told Angel the same things that she'd been telling us ever since he was identified. While she doesn't feel bad for him, she wanted him to get help on the things that had haunted him, and she wanted no more violence to occur and hoped that his time in prison can help him find that path.
I think that when a victim sees the person who hurt them sentenced, sent to jail, there is a large sense of closure. But that doesn't mean they're not going to wake up and deal with the consequences of that trauma for the rest of their life. Right? Like I said, they're going to learn and they're going to grow and they're going to heal and they're going to become beautiful people. But that doesn't mean they're not going to have to deal with it. But I think that's a really important step in being able to close that and maybe move on to the next chapter of their life.
Investigators reflect on the success of the case and the future of investigative genetic genealogy.
This is the first case in the state of New Mexico that used genetic testing to solve a crime is huge. And for me to be part of it, it means a lot to me.
This case would still be cold without forensic genealogy playing a critical role. I have no doubt that we would still be sitting here today with a victim who would be struggling still to put her life back in order and no sense of who this person was or where this person was. It was a proof of concept for myself and for our agency and for the investigators that we had discovered an entirely new tool to try and solve some of the most difficult cases that we have.
People should never give up. People should never give up on a case They should never give up on an identity. They should never give up on a loved one, because there are people like me out there, and there are more coming. And as the technology improves, it's just going to get better and more cases are going to get solved.
I think if you were a sexual assault survivor, this spoke volumes. This told you, and police don't give up, right? We're not going to give up. Prosecutors aren't going to give up. We always want to find who committed this crime. We need to unmask them. We need to make what they did transparent to the community. And so I think this showed a great bout of confidence to our community that we are very capable of doing this, and we plan on doing it forever.
In this case, one incredibly brave rape victim and amazing forensic science combined to deliver justice when it looked like none would ever be had. I'm Nancy Grace. Thank you for joining us here on Bloodline Detectives.